it's time to actually now have some discussions. So we'll jump into our first panel discussion for the day. I would actually invite my fellow panelists. I'll go with their names. My first panelist for the day, Mustahil Al-Mamari. Mustahil, Head of Strategy and Transformation at National Bank of Oman. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Mustahil. Please. My second panelist for the day, Raid Lawati. Raid is Head of IT and Digital at Oman Housing Bank. Raid, welcome. My third panelist for the day, the Head of Technology at Oman Arab Bank. Put your hands together to welcome Tariq Al-Zadjali. And my fourth panelist, fellow panelist for the day, is the Managing Director for Universal Banking for the region at Finastra, Rudy Kawmi. Well, we start the day with an interesting topic on digital transformation in Oman banking landscape. And maybe I should start the discussion with this, most commonly used phrase, Mustahil, increasingly digital world. I guess we are sick of this word, how long has it been increasing? But then we could probably reverse the question here. And I'll start with you, Mustahil. If a bank has to be, quote unquote, ahead of the curve in what is becoming digital, more and more digital by the day, what should a bank do?
Assalamu alaikum, good morning everybody, and thank you Ram for you, Cedar team and APS as well. I think it's very important to give you this kind of appreciation words. I think this gathering with all these bright minds is actually something wonderful, and it's just demonstrating your contribution to the market, be it Oman or the region. With regards to your questions, I think maybe to start with, it's very important to highlight that digital transformation, it's an imperative as we speak, and it's become a necessity. Previously, all organizations have the choice either to digitize or move to the digital era and space. However, and that's maybe to enhance efficiency, cost cutting. However, nowadays it's actually becoming imperative, and there is no choice. I think the contribution or the competitive or the competition happening from the sectors or the cross sectors is actually high. You will need definitely to cope up with the trends and the changes happening in the market. What banking sectors exactly needed or needs to cope up with this change is mainly, of course, understanding what's going on first. And I think the four pillars which been presented by Chetan is actually demonstrating the direction of the market, be it in Oman or in the region as well. But it's very important to identify what factors drive you to there, which is, of course, I will always start, although we are in a digital forum, but I will start with the people. So talent is the first important things. Skill sets is the nature and the core fundamental base for any digital transformation. Once you build that fundamental or you bring that fundamental in place and you have the right minds and tools in place, then you need to think about other elements, which is actually looking at your customers as a second, and what exactly your customers needs. Third, maybe understanding your peers and competitors and what exactly happening with them and how do they move towards digitization and digitizing their product and services. There is a lot of interruption happening from other players on the market. We are talking about fintechs, and we would like to look at them as an opportunities, not as a threat. There is a lot of partnerships needs to be enabled in place. And of course, other companies and other sectors also. We have seen also in the presentation that Omantel, for example, coming from a telecom sectors, which is actually tapping on certain, let's say, core activities of banking sectors, like payments, for example. So, and of course, being always on a learning curve, and that's very important. So innovation is another factor which will cope up and keep the banking and the banks actually on the cutting edge improvement, of course.
Lovely. Start from the inside, look at yourself, know where you are to start with is what you have to advise us. And I think I take 3 or 4 takeaways from what you said. First is look at your skill sets. It's critical to have people. Of course, make sure you are focusing on customer needs. Look at your peers. And I think the last point that you talked about, which was about collaborating with fintechs and see them as partners and not as threat. I think that's a very powerful statement. I'm going to take that to right. I think it's a very interesting comment that Mustahil just made, right? Fintech, particularly if you are a traditional financial institution, partnering with fintechs, collaborating with them cannot be an accident. It has to be a well thought through, structured exercise that you go through. And fostering innovation is obviously a function of how well that partnership and collaboration is. What's your view on how this could actually be achieved by a bank?
Right, there are several aspects to this. Now, when you're dealing with a fintech, you could be dealing with a fintech at every or at different aspects, right? You could import a technology or import a system that you can buy from them. There is a way of co-creation with the fintechs, but at the end of the day, you need to have this as an intention. The intention is you cannot and you will not be at this stage of time as innovative as fintech startups. And for you to be able to capitalize on that innovation, you need to tie up with those fintechs, in my opinion. The other aspects that both will actually gain from this, coordination. Now, at certain point, you complement your each strengths. They are agile, they're nimble, they know new technologies, and they know how to deliver to niche customers. Now, in another hand, the banks are banking experts, domain experts, and they have the regulatory knowledge. So that's where they gain from each other. Again, they're innovative and they're speedy. Their delivery is very speedy and nimble. Also, it touches upon enhancing the customer experience, and that is one part that, the question that was touched upon by Mustahil. And I think customer experience would drive a lot of adoption or movement from one bank to the other. So being not only understanding what your customer wants, but also delivering the right technology, if I may say, or actually a stable technology, so it does not fall apart when you're trying to use it. The other aspects that are related to this is also when you are dealing with those fintechs, that you have access normally to new markets that you don't intentionally, a lot of times, want to attract. And through those fintechs, you're attracting those niche segments, those niche products that you can't, a lot of times, by yourself invent or come up with. BNPL being it one of them, Save Now, Pay Later, and so on. Another is the cost efficiencies that you may gain, or you would gain. Fintechs are naturally a lot cheaper than giant techs. And co-creating with them, if it is something very specific, or adopting a certain technology or service, would definitely be very cost effective. The other is the diversification of those services or products. There are a lot of banks in the country, and almost the offerings are very similar. Now, with adopting a fintech methodology, or actually tying up always with fintechs when wanting to introduce a particular product or a service, that would add a lot of new products and new services to those niche customers. Excuse me. And by that, you gain a competitive edge towards other banks. The other is, helping building this ecosystem of being truly customer focused. So you as a bank, by saying you want to be customer focused, that means that you have to engage with fintechs because you can't really look into that at very depth.
It's a very powerful statement you just made, yeah. If you are customer focused, you better be partnering with a fintech. And I think I would endorse that, right? I mean, if you aren't actually co-creating, as you say, and actually complementing what you have to offer, and you can't possibly do them all alone, I mean, you may have to actually be borrowing from, what partners have to offer. But I think that statement of yours is stuck to me, right? I mean, if you actually have to deal with evolving needs of the customer, then you have to deal with the partnership with fintechs to drive the evolution of your own technology backbone. And I'll take that question to you, Tariq. I think that's a interesting statement that Rai just made, right? On the one hand, you actually see customer needs are changing every day. And he talked about buy now, pay later, BNPL, and save now, pay later. I think that's what my dad did. He always saved first before he could actually buy some stuff. And then we have now SNPLs and whatnot. And you actually have, on the other side, technology evolving, right? Not only are customer needs evolving, but technology is evolving. Both are happening, both on the side. And clearly, if you have to keep pace with both, then you have to be agile, be nimble, and obviously be able to adapt and adopt both of them on an ongoing basis, right? So how does what should a bank do or not do, in your view, in order to actually be able to keep pace with both customer need and technology change happening in both ends?
Sure, Raj. Sorry, Ram. I think we all know that the digital world basically is evolving, and so do the customer needs are evolving. And with the advancement of the technology, basically today the customer, if we let's say summarize the expectation from the customer, they expect basically the journey to be very seamless and quick and fast and end-to-end digitally, and with minimum manual interventions. And the service availability is one of the key factors basically for the any digital services, the availability of the service to be basically available by 24/7. And there is very little room for basically to have a planned downtimes, and forget about the unplanned downtime. In fact, for the planned downtimes are also not acceptable in today's world, basically in digital. So from that perspective, basically and again, in fact, COVID basically has driven rapidly, the adoption rate of the customer on the digital channels. Today, most of the customers basically prefer to do their day-to-day banking services through the digital channel, and specifically more on the mobile, basically, and smartphones. And it's due to basically being more convenience and fast and quick. So there's always a challenge for the traditional banks, basically, to be agile, to make sure that they're up to the, let's say, expectation of the customer to deliver those services. And that can be only resolved by having an agile tech stack, basically. And there are a lot of technologies today available in the market. So it's not necessary that you are a traditional bank, you cannot basically be agile in your delivery of the services on technology side. As rightly mentioned by Raid and Mustahil, one of the basic option is that to basically collaborate with the fintechs to basically introduce the innovative products to the customer. And there are also a lot of technology which basically helps you basically to be agile and quick to deliver the services to the customer. For example, the platform approach, which is few banks has adopted basically a long time back. I would say not even recently, it was adopted by a long time back, which basically enabled them to deliver those services in a quick and very fast manner, basically. And as Mr. rightly mentioned, that one of the challenges basically in the local, and I think it's also globally, that the shortage of the talents basically. Now, because technology is evolving on day-to-day basis, basically. So to keep it up and keep that skills available locally, internally, it's always a challenge, basically, for the banks, and specifically local banks over here. So, so there are a lot of technologies available. So we need to change, basically, the mindset. We need to be open for the change. We need to be open for the feedbacks. We need to be open to collaborate with the fintechs. and make sure that we leverage on the other aspects of the technology, which are the data, basically the open APIs, frameworks, which will basically leverage, gives the leverage to the banks to basically extend their services beyond what traditional banks are offering today. And additionally also that we need to also leverage on the expertise of the global and regional basically markets, because as rightly mentioned by Chetan in his presentation, that regionally, for example, certain countries are well ahead of Oman in certain areas, and Oman is still basically trying to implement open banking, for example, a framework. We can leverage on their expertise and to learn from their basically, what went wrong, what went right, basically for them, so that we can build the right ecosystem. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that it's all about being open for the change and being open to collaborate with external parties, not without limiting yourself to the mindset that I have to do everything within my to avoid the loss or not to lose my customers or my business more basically.
Be open to collaborate. Look to learn from what others have done around you. I think the second time we heard in this panel about keep the focus on skill sets and make up for the absence of it with partnerships and collaboration. I think there were some very important takeaways, Tariq. I mean, I'm sure people in the audience would relate to it and resonate with some of those comments. And not to forget, you also talked about what change has been post-COVID. And I think that's not just Oman phenomena, it's around the world. And I'm going to take one of your comments to you, Rudy. I mean, Tariq mentioned very interestingly about there are things happening around us, things happening in the region, things happening globally, and not necessarily all of them have actually been adopted or practiced already in Oman. And therefore, one needs to be, keeping an eye for that and be willing to change and be adaptable, right? So you are somebody who actually who travels a lot, who actually meets with banks around the world and more particularly in the region. So if you were to give me or give our audience here your own views on what you see around the region, some of them that could actually be relevant, important for us here in Oman, and what could that also imply for our banking friends here in terms of what they should look up to or look forward to when it comes to adapting it?
Thank you, Ram, and good morning, everybody. I think what I found really interesting, Ram, was Chetan's slide on the digital banks across the region, that map, and how 10 years ago, or maybe less, there would have been nothing on that slide, right? So there's no doubt there's been a huge investment in this space, and some of the examples on there were definitely success stories. There are institutions who have done this. We're here talking about NextGen technology. They've done this and they've seen success. But there's absolutely other examples, right, where it's been a challenge or where it didn't meet the expectation from the beginning. And yeah, I come from a technology company, but I think the 2 points that I would like to share based on discussions in the GCC and I think are relevant to the leaders in this room and as Oman is embarking on this journey. The first is to start with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is, a lot of this stuff is exciting, but you really have to understand what is the use case that we are catering for. It's not about onboarding a customer in 30 seconds. That's great, it's important, but it's not a use case. We have to figure out what is the customer that we're targeting, what is the problem that we're solving, what is the challenge that they're having with the service that they get today that we're going to do better, and that's why they're going to come to us. So I think starting with the end in mind, the focus on use cases, and pulling that together, and my colleagues here talked about collaboration with your technology partners to figure out how does that sit within a wider business case. How do we make money by targeting this segment, by delivering these services? And what is that technology architecture? Raed talked about in an ecosystem. It's not going to be one technology partner. You're going to work with multiple solutions and tools. How's that all going to sit together to deliver that use case? And how are we going to do it quickly? Because the biggest problem I see is that you do look at the use cases and you grow a scope and a capability and you want to do everything under the sun on day one. and you end up with a really complicated project, a really long project, and by the time you even hit the market, things are changing so rapidly that maybe the whole premise has changed. And so it should really be about that crisp MVP. What is that use case? Let's go to market, let's learn, let's iterate, because we're not going to get 100% right, but we're not going to know until we're out there. So that would be the first bit of advice, and what I see a lot of the success definitely has a focus on. The second would be new technology doesn't always mean new bank. And what I mean by that is that I think it's the responsibility of leaders in banking and technology companies to fight the very tempting possibility of doing whatever it is you do today on some kind of new technology platform. And believe me, it happens all the time. You have organizations that want to transform and change and will spend millions of dollars to do so, and somehow try to take exactly what they're doing today and move that into some kind of new technology. And it's very easy to do. And I think the only ways to stop it is leadership. And I'll give you the example. I'm working with a bank in the GCC. They're taking their legacy technology and they're going to the cloud. And we're in the weeds, right? We're figuring out all the details, the scope, where it gets complicated. And you know, they'll throw comments about features saying, oh yeah, we have this report. It's for our corporate customers. We need to have it. And it was the COO on the bank side that was driving the right approach, which was, can you tell me how many times our customers are using this report? It's a fair question. I don't know. He's like, okay, go get the data, come back, then we'll park it for now. So the next session, they come back. Did you find out? Yeah, in the last 12 months, it was used twice across the bank. So then it wasn't a conversation anymore. He said, we're not going to add complexity for something that was used twice in 12 months. Let's move on. Let's go on to the next topic. And I think that is really important, because when you're tight on time, when there's pressure, you've kicked off a project, you need to deliver this change, the easiest thing to do is just, oh, this is how we do it now. Can we make that work in this world? And I think you lose that benefit, you know, that benefit that technology can give you to reinvent and reimagine how you're running your business. Those would be my
Fascinating.
tips, yeah.
Begin with the end in mind. And if I may paraphrase your second point slightly differently, and some of my colleagues here would recall my quoting this, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? So the more you convolute yourself, the more you actually are moving away from that end in mind, right? So keep it simple and keep it, you know, straightforward. Well, that's interesting, and I also appreciate the example you gave, right? But you know, you have this, and I'm just having a follow-on question to you here, Rudy, and my fellow panelists can also jump in here. It's more than actually the technology, and more than the MVP, and more than your customer need. It's actually a mindset change, isn't it? It's actually more about having a clarity on what ultimately you are seeking to deliver and staying uni-focused on that, right? I mean, otherwise you actually get into the riffraff of attempting to recreate what you currently have, isn't it?
No, I completely agree. And that isn't a challenge in banking. It's a challenge in technology companies. I think it's a challenge anywhere, because it's a human challenge to change, right? Change is difficult. How you do things, mindset, culture, approach. It applies to everybody. When you've been doing things a certain way for a long time, and they've worked in the past, it's hard to change, and you'll have resistance to change, even when people know it's the right thing to do. I'm not surprised that, you know, the panel here have talked a lot about training, mindset, culture, because without that, I think, yeah, you will struggle to achieve success.
Try bringing the change, get up early in the morning to go hit the gym, yeah. So, okay. I will be opening up in a while for questions from the audience, but I have what I may like to call as some crystal gazing question, the same question to all the 4 panelists. And let's start with you again here, Mustahil. There's so much change happening, and there's so much change expected to happen, right? Now, if you were to pick either a change that you already are seeing or you would like to see, that could create the maximum impact from a digital innovation standpoint in this market, what would that be, or what is it right now?
I think it's very difficult to
Very difficult question, isn't it?
No, to pick at least, because there is a lot of changing factors, and there is a lot of use cases which will definitely reshape our markets, be it in Oman or in the region. And I will start globally, and I think, again, Chetan touched upon the open finance. There is, and I think in some other context, they call it decentralized finance, DeFi. And that's, to be honest, is something which is alerting. When the change and the fintech or even the innovation happened at the beginning, it was touching very transactional base. So it was payments or even connectivity. But this will touch the core business of the banking, right? Banking, the nature of the license was based on lending and deposit assets and liabilities. If we are opening this space to unlicensed kind of players, it will be really a game changer. And let's watch out what will happen. Locally, I think in Oman, and I will pick up the first one before my colleagues catch it up, I think Mala'a is playing a very good role on changing the market now, credit bureau. If we are talking about digital onboarding, which is the talk of the town, I think we have to integrate with them and start the digital onboarding and provide services and the full-fledged banking services through the mobile or the digital channels. Lending as well, I think the mechanism will going to change. As we speak, it's very traditional based on the employers and other factors. Scoring or lending and credits based on scores is not an easy, let's say, change. That will require a lot of risk-taking. It will require a lot of adaptation on the policies, on understanding customer behaviors, and also maybe driving certain new implementation of new products. Now we are talking about 1 or 2, 3 products mainly, but with the scorecard or credit lending, the things will change definitely. Again, that will give you an indication on the other aspect, which is which the government is actually driving to, is the saving aspects. So I believe Mala and Credit Bureau will be the first one. I have 2 more examples on use cases, but I'll leave it to the guys otherwise.
Very kind of you. So he has already put a rider that we can't repeat what he has to say. Am I audible? Yeah? Yeah, okay. So, but I think I do want to highlight that you talk about decentralized finance, and Chetan clarified open banking and open finance, and I think that's clearly having an impact. Credit Bureau and digital onboarding and partnership and driving lending with all of these in play is Mustahil's dream vision as he sees. DFIN or defined. Over to you, right?
Internationally, I believe, of course, other than the challenge of DeFi is, I think there is a trend that is emerging between lifestyle banking and hyper apps, and the merger between those. Maybe more towards Asia, but I think that is also picking up in the Scandinavian countries and Europe in general. Locally, in Oman, of course, central bank announcing or coming up with a stipulation around tokenization. Obviously, that is going to drastically change the payment methodologies in the country. And I also believe, the introduction of open banking, I know it's going to be primitive in 2024. But again, an edge to a bank is that they're already APIfied, they're already having API gateways, and they're ready to possibly even monetize those APIs.
Interesting. Tokenization is your pick, since I won't repeat what Mustahil said, but I think that's an important one. And we do have another panel that talks about payments later today, but I agree. I think clearly that's going to have a not only a direct impact, but also a cascading impact in terms of what it means to the retail sector and so on and so forth, right? Tariq.
See, I agree with the right and basically Mustahil on the choosing of which use case basically going to be, which is emerging or the one, because the reason behind of that, because we are yet seen as a green field basically. So there are a lot to be done, to be honest. As he rightly mentioned, tokenization is one of the things which is going to come and definitely is going to create a big impact in the customer satisfaction level, from the customer satisfaction level. But I would, to be more on technical, because I will be kind of person who is a techie guy, so I will try to focus on the tech side. So I think, in my view, I think the Gen I is going to revolutionize the way basically today we manage our customers personalized, by having a personalized sort of experience to the customer and enhancing the risk framework basically within the bank basic today, because as you grow with the digital basic, these cyber security also basically is one of the concern for most of the organizations, and you cannot basically depend on the manual approach and humans basically. So most probably that Gen I might not have a good impact on those areas.
Is that a vision, or is it a hope, or is it a prediction?
It's a prediction. It's a prediction which is going to happen because it's already there. Because to be honest,
it's already there.
There are use cases, successful use cases, but yet it's still in the.
No, I agree. I mean, I think clearly what we're seeing here, and this is not just in the region, right? I mean, this is happening around the world. And as they say, I think we are migrating our labor force and our skill sets to more human-related output activities, and the mundane ones getting to be intelligently automated, as they call it. Thank you, Tariq. Rudy.
I thought for a minute there we would have a panel without mentioning Gen AI, but Tariq brought it. And I want to jump onto it because I also think this is definitely not a disruption, I think, for next year in the market here or maybe even 2 years. But I think everything is in place now. If you look across open finance, as was discussed, and Gen AI, and we had a chat about this, Ram, in Dubai a month back, and I keep thinking about it. I'm a pretty lazy banking customer, as a personal customer. If my primary bank can give me that product or service, even if it's marginally worse than what's down the road, I'll probably just use my primary bank, right? And I think a lot of people are like that. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And I think we probably, as a banking community, rely on that a lot to retain customers, that inertia to just stay with the status quo. But if you think about open finance and the regulation that's coming here, so very soon and in other markets, third parties can access with authorization all your banking information. I give my authorization to a fintech, and he can pull out all my account information, balances across the 3 banks that I use, right? I can get a consolidated view of my financial world. Then you think about Gen AI and teaching these language models to give me personalized advice. Because now that language model knows my financial universe, my personal financial situation across many organizations. And it can advise me. It can say, Rudy, you can consolidate these 2 loans with bank XYZ, and you could get a better rate. You could optimize it. Or you have a lot of cash sitting over here, and there's a great fixed deposit at bank ABC. Do you want us to open it? And now my whole financial future world is through an interface that isn't actually the bank. And that friction that stops me today from shopping around and switching things and doing the work of researching and figuring out how I could do it, because maybe I don't understand everything about financial products. Sometimes we make things a bit complicated. That could go away, right? And that, for me, that would be scary. It's not scary next year, it's not scary in 2 years, but I don't see how that's not going to be a thing, because the data is going to be accessible, and these Gen AI language models are going to be very sophisticated and start getting tailored to this kind of financial advice space.
You wanted to say something, Mustahil?
What's scary here, and just to build on Rudy's comments, maybe a few years back, everyone was talking about technology, and regardless if you are coming from a technology background or no. And that's because of the insight being given through all the platforms, right? So everyone was having an opinion on the technology. As we speak, I think banking and finance overall is also open for everyone, and it's very scary. Everyone with any bright, innovative, strange, whatever you want to call the idea, will definitely jump into this space, and the platforms is open for them. I think it's something to be highlighted.
Thank you. I am happy to take a couple of questions from the audience. Mike's there. Questions, anybody? See hand go up there. Ramki? Were you going to ask? Okay. Okay, I'll ask my, and this is open to all the four panelists here. You see, we've talked about Gen AI, we talked about customer needs, we've talked about impact that is actually likely to be created. We also talked about what's happening around in the world and what's happening locally here. But the one question that we all are, I know we are all looking to deal with, is how does one, how do you actually prioritize between what you're doing as BAU for your day-to-day operations, and how do you actually get to drive this transformation, which you can't do in series? You got to run both, right? Change the bank and run the bank. They need to run in parallel. So practical experiences, practical learnings that any of you would like to share would be welcome to the audience.
The newest
Please.
one is, he just moved to a new organization. He will show up.
This is a nice way to pass the buck, yeah.
Right, so it is obviously quite hard, honestly, to run an organization and re-establish or transform an organization. And, especially when doing it with the same resources. I think one way that we are trying to achieve this is to have logical separations. Logical separations are not necessarily physical separations or systematic separations. Again, it's not easy, and to be very honest with you, we are at the junction of learning how to do it. We try it out, we fail quickly, we try another way of doing it. And I think that's one way of doing it. We're trying to do that by continuously adjusting the way that we do things, and I think that's the way that we could go about it.
Logical separations and keep your eye on the ball, yeah. Okay, any other questions from anybody?
I'll just touch upon something that Tariq and Rudy mentioned with his Gen AI. And I mean, it's actually very, in my opinion, it's a lot closer than 2 or 3 years, because when you have a look at, for example, Copilot,
Yeah.
and what can Copilot do from yesterday, 1st of November, it was officially launched, and Copilot for security. The Copilot for security, it's a defense mechanism by just talking to the bot. And it's kind of scary, but kind of interesting as well, because today you are protecting yourself using a bot, using an AI model. But the worst that can happen is that that bot, that AI could be built with, with the thought of actually being an intrusion.
Yeah.
And that is a lot more scary.
Talk about Alexa. Yeah, there's one question there. Can you pass the mic there, please? You going to say something, Mustahil?
Hello. Okay, hello. My question is on the Generation Z and Millennials. So now, since they are the largest population segment, so in your views as a bankers, what do you think that we should do or change that will attract those generation of customers, and they will be more inclined towards opening a bank account with a bank rather than going towards a fintech? So what change should happen here?
I might take these questions. I think, especially in Oman, what's happening is the needs is changing as well, right? So this segments of customers is actually looking for more than transactions, and there is a lot of aspects to be improved from a banking perspective. We are talking about, we talked about little bit about saving, which is actually it's an interest for this segments, and once they reach to a period of time, which is the transition period between studying or being in a school and getting a job, it's very crucial period. So if we can provide some help as a bank to those segments, I think we'll definitely make a differentiator, and we can at least cope up with the fintechs from that perspective. Second is, Raid highlighted something interesting about the customer journey. Simplification is a key, definitely, and everyone is in hurry, especially the segments, and they are always in rush, so they will definitely look and try to find the best, simple, fast way to do a transaction or even to catch up. Something called entertainment banking or transaction, which is very important as well. And I think in Oman, we are a bit slow on it, but I think tapping onto such services and products will definitely competing, or at least put us in par with whatever fintech is providing in space.
Thank you, Mustahil.
I'll just add to that rather than just expecting that we know what they want, as bankers, we don't necessarily know what every segment wants. So listening to the actual customer and driving towards the services and the product that they would like to create. I mean, there's the examples of Barclays, there's the examples of Fidor, and so many other banks that has created products out of, voice of customer, out of what the customer actually wants.
Spot on. I think that's very powerful. I think that's, on that note, I mean, keep your customer in the front and middle, not your own process and products, right? So thank you for that, right? The panelists will obviously be available. I'm running really out of time, but since you have last question there, please.
Hello?
Yeah, you can speak now.
Okay. So I would like to have one question since we are running short of time. This is Anil, to all the bankers. We heard Chetan talking about the entire landscape and where we are in Oman. So if you talk about the technology partner, you have said that we collaborate with the fintechs and the technology partners. So what are the key 1 or 2 areas which you would like the technology partners and the fintechs to help bankers or the organizations to scale to the next level?
Tariq, you want to take that?
If I understand the question is more on the
What
which are the
areas-
use cases which we
Yeah.
can basically effectively collaborate with the fintechs.
Yeah.
So if we really look into this, the top priority for us today as a bankers basically is basically the KYC. That's one of the challenge which most of the banks traditional are going through. To basically they're falling on the mode of the manual approach that to get those KYC on the customers. So if we have that kind of fintech which basically can provide you the KYC through a digital way, that will reduce the time taken to do the customer KYCs, and it will speed up the updates of those customers in a digital manner. That's one area. And the second area would be, in my view, is probably the payments. Payments is one of the successful use case across global. And if you take the Indian market, for example, I think one of the successful use case which we can basically always leverage on it to learn from them on this, particularly in this fintech space. Yeah.
Thank you, Tariq.
How are you looking to the lending? On the lending side, how you see the banks to be able to address the next generation needs?
Lending.
Is there a collaboration on the lending front?
Lendings, I think it's yes, it's there. There is a discussions are going on among the banks on the BNPL basically. They're starting to tap on this, but still it's not there in the live case so far. We have not seen it. But yes, there are, for example, as we have seen in this Chenton slide, basically Mamoon for example, is basically they obtained the crowdfunding sort of the license. Beehive is there. And I believe there's few fintechs are also in the final stage of getting the regulation clearance on to start the BNPL products in the market.
You can take further questions. We'll be breaking away, a break for the tea. You could actually, the panelists will be available for you to take the questions there. I will have to draw the curtains, unfortunately. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today. Wonderful start of the day with the first panel. Thank you.